Hello everyone. This is the articles for 7th of January. Okay, we will start with the first one. Election Commission says it has constitutional duty to bar foreigners from voter rolls. See, this is a very important constitutional issue related to voter list, citizenship, and the powers of the Election Commission of India. The Election Commission has told the Supreme Court that it has not only the power but also the constitutional duty to ensure that no foreigner is included in the electoral rolls. The Election Commission explained why special intensive revision is not the same as National Registry of Citizens. In NRC, all citizens are counted, even minors and even persons of unsound mind. But in electoral rolls, only citizens above 18 years are included and persons of unsound mind are excluded. So, the Election Commission said, on the face of it, electoral roll revision cannot be compared with NRC. And maintaining a national register of citizens and issuing national ID cards is the responsibility of the central government under Section 14A of the Citizenship Act 1955. And that requires creation of a national registration authority. But the Election Commission draws its power from Article 324 of the Constitution, which gives it authority over preparation and revision of electoral rolls. So, Election Commission is not preparing a citizenship register, but only checking whether voters are eligible citizens. See, this one. Haryana women with 10 daughters gives birth to a son. This shows that son meta preference is still prevalent in our society. See this article, data centers with focus on e-governance to come up in Jaipur. See a state-of-the-art data center, as well as we are going to use AI for governance activities. And this is the first thing you have to remember, and you can quote this as an example in GS2 governance related question, as well as very important for public administration. See in this photo, there is this National Deworming Day. See, soil transmitted helminths are a significant public health concern for India, and around 22 crore Indian children aged 1 to 14 are estimated to be at risk of worm infections. And worms in children interfere with the nutrient uptake and can contribute to anemia, malnourishment, and impaired mental and physical development. And to combat this issue, in 2015, the Government of India launched the Fixed Day Anganwadi and School-Based National Deworming Day to deworm all children aged 1 to 19 years. The National Deworming Day is conducted in all states and union territories in two rounds. The first round is on February 10 and it is followed by the second round on August 10 every year. And the objective of National Deworming Day is to deworm all preschool and school-age children, enrolled as well as non-enrolled, that is very important, between the ages of 1 to 19 years. See the next article, the right to disconnect in an always-on economy. See, in the digital age, tools like smartphones, laptops, and instant emails have turned into 24/7 task matters, eroding the boundary between professional life and personal well-being. Evenings, weekends, and holidays are increasingly treated as extensions of working hours. And this culture of constant availability is harming the Indian workforce and leading to burnout. Recognizing this, a private member's bill has been proposed to legally guarantee the right to disconnect, making it a matter of public health, economic productivity, and social stability, and it is not just a labor reform. See, this article presents strong data showing that India's work culture is unsustainable. Like 51% of India's workforce works more than 49 hours per week. This is a International Labour Organization's data. And India ranks second globally, second in extended working hours. And 78% of employees report job burnout. And work stress contributes to 10% to 12% of mental health cases. This is given by National Mental Health Survey. So, this overwork leads to physical exhaustion, emotional stress, reduced creativity, more workplace errors, and lower productivity in the long run. So, if you take the current legal framework, Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code 2020, there is a problem with this framework. It limits the working hours mainly for workers and does not clearly protect all employees, and which leaves out contractual workers, freelancers, and gig workers. As a result, a large, young, digitally connected workforce remains legally unprotected. And employees fear punishment or termination for ignoring late night work messages. And there is a power imbalance which remains in favor of employers. Now, what the right to disconnect bill proposes? So, this bill aims to amend the 2020 code and introduce two core legal protections. The first one, employees cannot be punished or discriminated against for not responding to work communication beyond working hours. And a grievance redressal mechanism must exist when employers violate these rights. And they have also defined and limit working hours for all employees and extend this protection to contractual workers and gig workers. They also include mental health support and occupational well-being. See, there are various global precedents supporting the right to disconnect. Countries that have already legislated the right to disconnect are France since 2017, Portugal, Italy, Ireland, and Australia. And features of these laws are companies must negotiate protocols to limit after hours communication. And downtime is treated as essential for health and sustainable productivity. And this shows that respecting personal time is not anti growth but necessary for long term economic success. Now, if you take state level initiatives in India, Kerala has already introduced legislation for local private sector employees. However, the article argues that this crisis is national in scale and state-wise laws are insufficient and a central amendment is needed to protect workers across India. And the proposed bill aims to ensure uniform protection in all states and inclusion of vulnerable job categories. See, there is also a cultural and organizational barrier because the practices that we follow currently is we value presence, like valuing presenteeism over the actual output. If a person is not there, absent, then he or she is considered that they are not working properly. And the other one is treating late night emails as signs of commitment. See, if you get an email at 1 o'clock and if you immediately wanted to reply by 1:15, that shows that you're so committed. But that may not be true. That is what this culturally and organizationally we are having this kind of a toxic practices. So we needed reforms in this area also by conducting awareness programs, sensitization workshops for employers as well as employees, and integration of counseling and psychological support. And now the workplace culture should move from measuring just the hours, like 72 hours a week, or we have to move towards measuring the quality and the actual outcomes. See, in this death toll in Siau Island floods in Indonesia. Look into the Siau Island. It is a part of Indonesia. Just look in the map. And this island is north of Sulawesi Island. See the next article for the day, rethinking India's skilling outcomes. See, over the last 10 years, India has built one of the largest skilling ecosystems in the world. Under Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, about 1.4 crore candidates were trained and certified between 2015 and 2025. But despite the scale, skilling has not become aspirational. Most young people still see college degrees as the main route and skilling as a backup option. Now let us see what the data says. See, periodic labor force survey data shows that wage gains from vocational training are modest or inconsistent, especially in the informal sector where most workers are employed. In informal jobs, certified skills are not well recognized and quality of life does not improve much. So you do not see strong economic returns from skilling. That is why aspiration is missing. Now look at formal vocational training coverage. Only about 4.1% of India's workforce has received formal vocational training. 10 years ago, it was around 2%, so improvement is very small. Now compare this with OECD countries. About 44% of upper secondary students are in vocational tracks. In some countries, it is nearly 70%. So India is far behind integrating vocational education into mainstream education. So the article says very clearly that if skilling is to grow, it must travel through and alongside formal education and not remain outside it. Now, what about graduates? India's Skills Report 2025 shows that post-degree skilling by graduates is not common, and graduates are not regularly upgrading skills after college. So even higher education is not linked strongly with skill development. Now look into industry participation. See, industry benefits the most from skilled workers. And according to industry reports, attrition rates of 30 to 40% are common in sectors like retail, logistics, hospitality, and manufacturing. And this causes productivity losses, long onboarding periods, high training costs. So, industry has strong incentives to support skilling, but still, industry participation remains weak. Most companies do not trust public skilling certificates for hiring and they rely instead on internal training inside the industries, referrals, private platforms. So, even though the National Apprenticeship Promotion Scheme has expanded, its impact is still uneven, especially among large firms. And most importantly, industry is not deeply involved in designing curriculum, assessments, or standards. So, skilling is something industry consumes, not something it co creates. As long as this continues, skilling will remain disconnected from real job needs. Now comes the most serious structural problem, sector skill councils. See, sector skill councils were created to be industry facing bodies defining standards, ensuring relevance, certifying job readiness. Basically, they were supposed to own employability outcomes, but that has not happened. Today, responsibility is fragmented. Like one agency trains, another assesses, and the sector skill council will certify. And the placement may or may not happen. So, no one is fully accountable for jobs. In contrast, in colleges or polytechnics, reputation matters. Poor outcomes affect future admissions, but in skilling, failure has no institutional consequence. So the trust has actually eroded here. Employers do not see this certificate provided by the Sector Skill Council as strong hiring signals. Compare this with certifications like this AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft. These work because the certifier's reputation is at stake. Assessments are graded not just pass or fail, and employers clearly know what skills the person has. Now, the SSC were supposed to play this role nationally. Instead, they mostly focus on writing standards and not on ensuring the jobs. How can we improve outcomes? First, skilling must move into the workplace. Expanding this national apprenticeship program and making apprenticeship stronger can improve job readiness faster. Second, industry must be treated as co-owner, not just beneficiary or consumer. That industry should help design curriculum, set assessment standards, validate certifications. Third, ITI modernization through schemes like PM Setu. That shows that stronger execution models are possible when industry accountability is built into the system. Fourth, skills must be embedded in degrees. When skilling is part of formal education, aspiration increases. Mobility between education and skills become easier. If skilling remains fragmented and welfare oriented, India will not fully benefit from its young population. And only when education and skills are integrated, industry is accountable, and certification signals real competence, can skilling become a pillar of national development. See the next article for the day: what are biomaterials and how do they work? See, biomaterials are those materials that are derived partly or fully from biological sources or produced using biological processes and are designed to replace or work alongside conventional materials. They are already being used in packaging, textiles, construction, and healthcare. Now, biomaterials can be divided into three broad categories. The first one is drop-in biomaterials. These are chemically the same as petroleum-based materials and can be used in existing factories. For example, biopet. They can replace normal PET plastic without changing manufacturing systems. The second one is dropout biomaterials. These are chemically different and need new processing or disposal systems. Third, novel biomaterials. These have properties not found in traditional materials like self-healing materials, bioactive medical implants, advanced biocomposites. So biomaterials are not just replacement, they can also create entirely new material capabilities itself. Now, why does India need biomaterials? See, biomaterials can solve multiple problems together. The first one is the environmental sustainability. They reduce the dependence on fossil-based plastics and chemicals and support climate and waste reduction goals, including bans on single-use plastics. The second one is industrial growth. Indigenous biomanufacturing can reduce imports of plastics, chemicals, industrial materials. So this supports Atmanirbhar Bharat and trade balance. Third, farmer livelihoods. Biomaterials use crops like sugarcane and maize and agricultural residues. So farmers get new income streams beyond just food markets. Fourth, export competitiveness. As global markets move towards low carbon products, countries that adopt biomaterials yearly will stay competitive in international trade. So biomaterials combine environment, industry, agriculture and exports into one strategic pathway. Now, where does India stand today? India's biomaterials sector is still emerging, but it is growing very fast. The bioplastics market alone was about $500 million in 2024 and is expected to grow strongly in this decade. And there are major investments are also happening in this. However, the concerns are still there. Like, even though India has strong agriculture, some of the technologies needed to convert raw material into final products are still dependent on foreign sources. So, technological self-reliance is not complete yet. So what are the risks if biomaterials scale without planning? First, feedstock competition with food. If demand increases, crops used for biomaterials may compete with food supply. Second, environmental risk from farming. If agriculture becomes aggressive, water stress can increase, soil quality can deteriorate. Third, waste management gaps. If composting and recycling systems are weak, even biodegradable materials may not give full environmental benefit. Fourth, policy fragmentation. If agriculture, industry, and environment ministries do not work in coordination, scaling becomes slow and inefficient. And finally, global competition. If India moves slowly, other countries may dominate biomaterials supply chains and India may again become import dependent. So, what is the way forward here? First, we need to build biomanufacturing industries like fermentation facilities, polymerization capacity. Second, we have to improve feedstock productivity, like using new technologies to increase yields from sugarcane, maize, agricultural residues. Third, we have to invest in R&D and standards. We have to develop drop-in biomaterials and novel biomaterials along with testing and certification systems. Fourth, clear regulations. There must be proper legal definitions, labeling rules, end of life pathways like composting and recycling, and this will build confidence among consumers as well as industries. And fifth, government support in early stages. This can include public procurement, time bound incentives, support for pilot plants, and shared manufacturing facilities. See the next article for the day. Privatization and policy gaps threaten India's public health system. See, India's public health system is under pressure due to underfunding, privatization, and policy failure. We often hear about fake medicines, unnecessary surgeries, and unethical trials. At the same time, disease risks are rising because of ultra processed food consumption, pollution of air, water, and soil, as well as climate change. So, illness is not just biological, it is also policy driven. See, access to healthcare is highly unequal. Class, caste, gender, and religion still decides how long people live and how much suffering they face. And even healthcare workers are struggling. Like ASHA workers continue to fight for rights, and public hospital working conditions are very poor. And privatization has worsened the problem. Like private equity now drives private hospitals where doctors are given targets like sales employees. Through schemes like Ayushman Bharat and public-private partnerships, public money is moving into private hospitals while the public system weakens. And medical education is also affected. Private medical colleges charges around rupees 40 lakh or more for MBBS. So, young doctor focus on recovering money, not on public service or social causes of diseases. And training has become exam oriented and MCQ based with less focus on real clinical skills. So, healthcare is becoming an expensive commodity, not a public service. Now, the key question is what can change this? The article says doctors themselves must act as agents of social change. Doctors see daily how poverty becomes malnutrition, pollution becomes cancer, unsafe roads become trauma. So they have moral authority and public trust. And this idea is not new. This was told by Rudolf Virchow. Medicine is a social science, and doctors are natural advocates of the poor. He entered politics and fought for sanitation, housing, and education as medical solutions. And in India also, Dr. Muthulakshmi Reddy fought against child marriage, Devdasi system, and women's exclusion. So, doctors have historically acted beyond hospitals. And the article says Indian doctors must ask hard questions. Why are diseases rising? Why are medicines unaffordable? Why is tobacco and alcohol promoted? Why is TB still not eliminated? Why is dialysis so inaccessible? The answer always comes back to policy failure and profit driven systems. The author uses a simple idea that healthcare today is like a bucket full of holes. We keep improving mops, better treatments and cost, but we don't close the tap that causes disease, poor regulation, privatization, and underfunding. And doctors must help shift focus to the tap and not just the mop. So, the final message from this article that you can take is doctors have power, trust, and ethical responsibility. And silence is not neutrality. In unequal societies, silence means supporting injustice. See the next article. Education Minister releases 55 volumes of literary works, especially in classical Indian languages. These books are in Kannada, Odia, Telugu, Malayalam, and Tamil. Along with this, the sign language series of the Tirukural was also released. See, some important translations were mentioned here. In Malayalam, Sangam works like Purananuru, Paditru Pattu, Pattu Pattu, and later works like Nanmani Kadigai, Nannar Pattu were translated. And in Telugu, translation of Silapadikaram, one of the five great Tamil epics. In Odia, works like Charyapada and Madalapanchi, with English and Hindi translation to help non-Odia readers understand Odisha's history. See, this initiative supports cultural preservation, inclusive education, multilingual learning under National Education Policy 2020, and university in diversity. See the next article. Ministry for doubling auto performance linked incentive allocation to rupees 5,800 crore. See, regarding this performance linked incentive scheme, look into the various sectors for which this scheme is being given. Okay, because once a question has been asked, so look into this PLI scheme. See this article. CCI probe finds Tata Steel, JSW Steel, SAIL breached antitrust law. India's competition watchdog, the Competition Commission of India, has found that major steel companies, Tata Steel, JSW, and SAIL, along with 25 other firms, violated antitrust law by colluding on steel prices. Now, this is very important and this can be used as an example while talking about Competition Commission of India or in antitrust cases or related questions. Even in ethics, you can use this. And for public administration, this becomes very important. Okay, regarding this article, Ministry of Commerce to visit Brussels to conclude India-EU FTA talks. Once it is concluded, we will look into the details. And this one is also important. Solar module manufacturing more than doubled in 2025. Just know the numbers, it is more than enough. See, this article says that in 2024, we stood at 63 gigawatts. And this year, that is previous year, that is 2025, it is 144 gigawatts. And this shows that 81 gigawatt worth of capacity has been added when compared to the previous year. See, again, Greenland is in news. Please look into Greenland's map, especially the physical one. See, know this term, like what do you mean by dual use goods? See, dual use goods are items, technologies, or software that can be used for both civilian, like that is peaceful purposes, and military or strategic purposes. That means the same product can help normal industries and also be used for weapons, surveillance, or warfare. See, this article is very important. This KE Panure in Arunachal Pradesh to become India's first bio-happy district. Already I put this in Telegram channel because see, once Sikkim turned into the first organic state of India, and that year there was a question in civil services prelims exam. See, the last article for the day, not just forest, why grasslands also belong in national climate plans. See, global climate talks focus mainly on forest, but grasslands and savannas are also major carbon sinks and biodiversity hotspots. And these biomes are the most threatened due to farming, plantations, mining, invasive species, and poor land policies. And protecting grasslands also protects water systems and indigenous livelihoods because it is seen in Australia's deserts, Brazil's Cerrado. But climate, biodiversity, and land policies are handled by separate UN bodies. So grasslands fall through the cracks. And experts say grasslands must be included in countries' NDCs under the Paris Agreement and managed with community participation. And without integrating these grasslands into national climate plans, climate action will remain incomplete and ineffective. This article is a very detailed one. You can go through it and you can have the full notes ready for this climate action plan related to grasslands. Make a note in a single A4 sheet paper, not more than that. Okay. So that's all for today. Thank you all for joining.